I was having a heart attack. When I heard them say, I thank you for having a heart attack, I went out of my body, literally. I remember looking, thinking, who is that in that corner? And then I thought, that's me in the corner. How can I be in that corner and in here at the same time? Then the ambulance came in because we had to be transported over to another hospital because our hospital is very small. The next thing I know, I've gone out of the ambulance. I could look into the ambulance and I could see me laying there, but I was on this other side thinking, how does that work? And I went up to see the driver, and then I came back and slipped up, and there was 12 people. No, they weren't people. They were clothes, white linen, I knew, and it was go belts, and you never could see their faces, but they could laugh. They could talk. It's all perspective and illusional here. It's through the illusions that we have learned, but we've got to now go in. And that's when I got into learning patterns, how we've been programmed, how the world really works. There's the world of man, and then there's the world of God or the supernatural. And I walk through the center of it and see both sides. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years.
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
We are here with Virginia Drake. Hello, Virginia. How are you?
How are you?
Fine.
I enjoy talking, letting people about the real truth about death.
So let's start on the day when you had your heart attack in 1998.
It was a week before, because that's important that people know that I was healthy. I was 46 years old. I had a farm. I was working as a teacher. I had 2 children. I was busy. I was a busy mother, and I was working in the garden. And I came back in to take a break, and I was sitting there, and there was a TV on because we had used to have 6 TVs. So I was just sitting there watching, and this guy starts talking to me. To me personally, it felt like he was, and he looked horrible. He looks like he was 90 years old. He had oxygen, but he was explaining that he'd had a heart transplant, and he was telling people, don't get a heart transplant. And I remember him saying that he was taking 90 pills a day. And I thought, 90 pills a day. So I'm listening, but all of a sudden, there was something in the room, because I was the only one in the den with the TV. And he said, and he felt like he came out of the screen and said, don't get a heart transplant. Now, I'm 46 years old. I walk 4 miles a day. I might smoke cigarettes every once in a while, but I wasn't I wasn't abusive with myself. So, and I remember raising my hand. He kept saying it and saying it. And I raised my hand and I said, oh, I'm not going to get a heart transplant. I'm healthy. I'm 46. And the next week, I was looking at one, and I refused it. But what it was is, when it was all going on, I remember I had acid reflux. So they were all treating me with reflux. So I was in my last, I was at the school, June the 2nd. I remember it very well. And it was my first day of summer break. And I mean, I had my son in there, other kids. We were taking the bulletin boards down. We were getting ready for summer break. Well, I kept getting this really bad, indigestion. I thought it was indigestion. And so I would walk down and have a little bit of Coke, because we had a Coke machine. And I thought, well, but I remember what really threw me down into a thought process is I leaned over in my trash can, and I was just perspiring so badly, it was dripping into the trash can. And I am a water safety instructor. I have been, and I recognized all of these, but I wasn't experiencing it because I'm 46, okay? And I kept thinking, that's not normal. That's just not normal. But I felt really, really bad. So I went down and I told my older son, would you come and get me? Because I don't think I can drive. I'm just not feeling good. And the week before, 3 weeks prior, I'd had acid reflux. So I'm thinking that's what it was. So my older son came and got me. We left the van there because we live in a small town. Everybody would recognize me. So I wasn't really worried about that because it was at the school. And I remember walking in, and immediately I thought, I had pulled a muscle, and I had a hot tub. So I got upstairs. I went upstairs, and I'm still going, like that. I'm having a hard time also to breathe. And I thought, well, I'll just go down and warm that arm up because it was in my shoulder. It went straight in here and was in my shoulder. I thought, I have really done something to my shoulder. So when I got into the hot tub and I got all the way down to the knees, it was like, oh, and it hit so hard. And I thought, oh my God, I'm really having something bad. So I went back out, went upstairs, and I thought, well, I'll just lay down and maybe just take a couple breaths and see. But my cats, I had two cats named Ike and Tina. They were very gray cats, but they were looking at me and I knew they were doing something strange. I mean, I'm laying there and they're just staring at me. And I thought, what's wrong with these cats? I mean, you just knew something was not right for them because they were just not acting the same. And I heard my husband down in this downstairs talking to my doctor saying, that's all right, we'll give her some more pills, thinking it's acid reflux, and which is fine. But I kept saying no. And this beautiful voice said, you need to go to the emergency room now. And I'd heard that voice, but I never really paid attention to that voice, but I could feel the desperation in that voice. So I ran down the stairs and I said, we need to go to the ER right now. And my husband kept saying, no, we are getting pills. And I said, no, we need to go now. So I remember I'm really hurting now. And he said, and we're from in the country, so we're going to have to go about 10 to 15 minutes to get into the emergency room. So he just pulls me up and he said, I'll drop you off and I'll go park. And I said, great, So I remember walking in and the lady, I said, I'm really having some pain and I think I'm having acid reflux. I've been here before. And she said, but the way she looked was, okay, you go right on over. And I thought, that's not the way they normally do that. They usually have to get your ID, what's going on, what's your insurance. She sent me right in. And I told the nurses, I said, I'm really hurting. And they immediately just took me in and started working. Well, then they saw that I was having a heart attack. And when I heard them say, did they say I'm having a heart attack? Well, you're trying to figure it out. When I heard them say, I thank you for having a heart attack, I went out of my body, literally. And I remember looking, thinking, who is that in that corner? And then I thought, that's me in the corner. How can I be in that corner and in here at the same time? So I was really trying to work it out in your mind because you're totally confused all the time if you're in this state of mind because you're in fear, you're in your strange place. And so I remember thinking, okay, I've got something going on here, and and they're all running around, but everything in the room got real slow. I mean, they were all going, oh God, she's having, and I'm going, is they saying, oh my God, she's having a heart attack again? But the next thing I went down into my body and I was viewing everything from my solar plexus. And I thought, that's not possible. How can I be looking here, them in front of me, I'm over here, and then everything is slow? You see, I don't think people realize with NDEs, we're trying to figure it out in a different world. That's not the world we're living in right then. We're in a different world, a different energy, and a lot of things that doesn't make sense. So I remember my friend who was in the ER, she was a friend of mine that I went to school with. She said, are you okay? And I thought, I don't know if I'm okay, And so my husband came in and he ran out immediately. They told him she's having a major heart attack. And I heard major heart attack. I thought, this is bigger than I even thought. So you're thinking, but also you're in that other state of mind, continually juggling different things and seeing things differently. Like people are slowing. And I mean, you could see them go, oh my God, and I'm thinking, are they talking about me? So I remember that they got me, then the ambulance came in because we had to be transported over to another hospital because our hospital is very small. So I remember the emergency or the ambulance guy, they were all doing all those things, getting the wires and everything, but I'm still confused. I'm in, I'm out. I'm in, I'm out. And I kept thinking, why, but I could hear everything that was going on in that room. And that man was wheeling me into the ambulance, and I heard him very clearly, she's not going to make it. And I got really mad. I said, how in the world can he say that when I'm sitting right here and I'm okay? But I didn't realize I was out of my body at the time. That's why you can hear all that. So I remember I came back in and I thought, why they got the lights out in here? And I've been in an ambulance with other people besides me. So I kept thinking they got to have all the lights. Then I started going through my education of, well, they haven't done the lights. They haven't even checked my blood pressure. They're not looking at me. How could they just leave me in the dark like this? Now, I mean, at that time, I went in there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was already 6:30 by the time I got into the ambulance, because they had to really put me together to be able to even transport myself up there. So I remember thinking, well, I'm really going to be mad at these people because they're not really doing a very good job, me being taken care of. The next thing I know, I've gone out of the ambulance. I could look into the ambulance and I could see me laying there, but I was on this other side thinking, how does that work? And the next thing I know, it was like I was just kind of driving in a little car, and I could see the ambulance driver, and I thought, I shouldn't be able to see him. And the next thing I know, it was like we went into fast mo, and I was boom, and I could feel myself being pushed all the way. I'm riding along with the ambulance. I went up to see the driver, and then I came back and slipped up. But what it felt like, I felt like that I had a ponytail at the top of my head, and somebody went and jerked. What they did is they jerked my soul back up, and I sat down, and there was 12 people. No, they weren't people. They were clothes, white linen, I knew, and it was gold belts, and you never could see their faces, but they could laugh. They could talk. And what I said, when I first came in, I said, where is my body? I mean, I was sitting in a chair. I knew I was sitting in a chair, but I thought, where is my body? I know my hands are here, my legs are here, but why am I not seeing it? Well, they all laughed, and they all telepathically laughed. It was a choir, but one voice at the same time. And it was like, how does that work? Again, you're new into this and you're going, how's that work? Well, you're trying to take a mind that's thinking in the world of man and not see that you don't have to talk. You can telepathically, because I can do that still. They were just giggling, basically, because I felt like I was in a spaceship or something. We were in a circle. I knew we were, and I would say, look at that, that's a nova. Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, that. And I mean, I was looking at that, and they would just giggle. But now what they gave me, I don't know telepathically. I think they were already they were giving me a download, because I had to. That's why I learned a lot of the things that I learned. It was a download, but I think I'm a part of that group. And I opted, this is what I learned from meditation. This is not from them personally, okay? But it's where I go out. And it's because I took the risk to come back down here and do the work for them to be able to bring in what they knowledge, what they know, and the downloads to override this frequency. That's what I feel. We landed right there in the emergency room in Lexington. And soon as they pulled that girder off of the ambulance, I hit the wheels down, and it jerked me back into my body. So I've been out of body and not aware that I was out of body. So then I was really confused. How can I be over here, out over there? And this is what I try to explain to people with NDEs. We don't really have a true understanding of it because we've never been there until we recognize several times, because I've done it several times, that I've been out of body a lot of times and didn't know it. So it gave me a whole different perspective, but also it made me look at everything around me in a whole different take. I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid at all. At the beginning I was, but after that, it was like I was so confused about what was really going on. So I remember my doctor or the cardiologist. I didn't know any of these people. I remember when I was getting ready to meet the cardiologist, three of my coworkers came into the hospital. They followed the ambulance because my husband was taking the kids. They said, we'll go we'll be with Jenny. And I said, that's great. Somebody I knew. Well, I remember I couldn't talk to them at all. It was so painful. They would ask me, how are you doing? So they taught me, or they showed me, do one blink for one yes and two blinks for two. And they said, are you okay? And I went, no, no, I'm not good. I don't know anything that's going on. But I remember thinking, I'm not going to ever see these people again. I mean, it was very clear. If I walk out of here or get out of here, I'm not going to see them again. These will be the last three people I'll ever see again. And I remember I got a little saddened about that. I thought, am I really going to die? These are little thoughts that come through. So then here comes the cardiologist and the nurse, and they're wheeling me in, and he's standing there and he's putting his gloves on, he's talking to me. He said, I was Miss Snip then, but he was going on, you're going to be okay. And this other nurse was sitting there, said, just stay calm, and they're giving me a drug to calm me down. You can, because it's like, wow, yeah. But I do remember this so well. He had his white coat on and he had a pen in his coat pocket. And I thought, why does he have that pen? And he leaned over to tell me, and the pen dropped to the floor. Well, within 5 or seconds, it felt like seconds, I was already down there looking for the pen, and I knew the pen was there. But on my way looking down, I saw he had Cohan shoes. I used to wear Cohan shoes. They were $300 a pair. And I thought, he doesn't have his booties on. So if he gets blood on that, now this is how you think. If he gets blood on his shoes, I'm going to have to pay for that. Now, this is I try to explain, you don't always have this clarity of that you're dying. You're still working on the other world and living in the other, it's a back and forth thing. And so I thought, I'm going to really have to say something about that because he didn't take care of it. So I remember when he wheeled me in, because you're awake when you do a heart attack, and he was going in for a calf, a heart cath to go in and take the blockage out. It was an aorta block. 9% blocked. So he's going through, and I told him, I said, because there was I could hear the drill, when they were doing it with the dye, and that was horrible. The dye was like burnt me up. I felt it go all the way from the tip of my toes all the way, but you can't talk. But I remember saying this to the nurse, I want to see this because I'm a teacher and I want to teach this of how this really goes in. And I remember the cardiologist, he said, are you sure that's what you want? I said, absolutely. I went like that. So I watched the whole thing. I saw it when it came in. I heard it go. And then I remember when that block was released, it was like, I can breathe. And I came right back in. I mean, I was back in and I was looking and I thought, I'm in a hospital. You know you're in a hospital, but yet you don't know you're in a hospital. So then I remember they were all trying to, and I thought, I can just get up on this guardian and I can walk out. I'm okay. And this nurse said, oh, no, ma'am, you can't. Well, I remember when I came into the other room, or that the priest was there, my friends were there. Everybody was, I could hear them in the back of the hallway and they're discussing something and they're upset. And I thought, why are they upset? I'm alive. I think I'm alive. And but there was a lot of talking, and what it was is that the priest that was coming to give me I guess that was the healing process, because it was sick, but I don't think it was the death one. And I remember they said, that's not the priest we want, your priest, because I worked with the St. Leo, so they wanted that priest there and this other priest. They were arguing, but I remember saying to myself, who cares? Who really cares about these small little details about your life? Right now, I'm laying here And they have already told me that I have approximately, if I don't get a heart transplant, you're going to have 6 months to live, and that's all. And I remember thinking, what? And immediately you go to your children. You go, oh, I won't see my kids. But I'd already remembered that man saying, don't get a heart transplant. And I remember turning around, looking at the cardiologist. I said, no. And he looked at me and he said, then you've got about 6 months. You're 46 years old. 2 days ago, I was fine. And now I'm sitting here. I was thrown out totally. So they took me to another room and I was in the ICU, but there was another lady in there with me. Now, I never saw her. We had a curtain between us. You got to understand, this is how they would work in the 80s. Okay. And I could hear her, but I knew she was older, but all I was doing is thinking, how did this all happen to me? And I'm trying to figure it out. Well, during the night, I had a visitation, and I'm really trying to, I'm trying to wrap around my mind that I'm going to only have 6 months to die, to live. And I was rethinking, how am I going to handle that? What am I going to say to people? How am I going to really handle this? And all of a sudden, this like little dot in the room of the where I was, it was a little bitty dot. And I remember going to it and I thought, why is that little dot? Where is that coming from? The next thing I know, just me giving the detail or looking on it, that light started getting bigger and bigger. And the next thing I know, it's Archangel Michael that's bigger than this hospital. And he's way up in the 6th floor, and I'm in the 3rd floor because I remember when they talked about it. And I thought, was this a true thing happening? Is this real? What's going on? And so what I did is I remember thinking, wow, doesn't work. It just can't be. And I remember him coming down on top of me and he said, it's time for you to wake up. And I thought they were supposed to be nice. He was very firm, very exact, and even walked out of the window of the hospital and was dancing outside. I thought, I have lost my mind, bad drugs. They've given me bad drugs. I'm now seeing these things. But that kind of rested a little bit. Then I had a group of angels that were coming around me and talking to me, but I couldn't see their voices. I couldn't hear them, but I could telepathically hear them. Same thing about, Archangel Michael. The only reason why I say Archangel Michael, that's the way I was raised, to see that kind of stuff. So, I had to look a lot of this stuff up, but to see. But I remember thinking, they kept talking to me, but I still couldn't understand what they were saying. But in that process, the lady next to me, somebody came in about 3 o'clock that morning to talk to her. And I was a teacher. So I recognized his voice as it was like a learning channel. It was National Geographic narrator. And I thought, that sounds just like the National Geographic narrator. I said, that can't be possible. Not at all. And so I just kind of listened, and he was telling her, but I couldn't hear a lot what he was. But I said, that can't be possible. That just can't be. This man cannot be sitting in that room. But now that woman, about 3 o'clock, I guess 3:30, 4 o'clock, she died. And I felt it when I didn't know that she died, but you had a feeling that things were, moving a lot. So I remember the nurse came in probably at 6:30, 7 o'clock. They always wake you up early checking on me. And I'm still dazed by what was going on. I couldn't wrap my mind out. I'd had these experiences. This woman over here's got the National Geographic. How does that work? Because I'm a scientist kind of person, because I have a BS, and it was like, I'm trying to figure it out and what is going on? So I remember the nurse came in. I said, did the lady die? And she said, yes. And I said, was there somebody in here with her? And she said, yes, her son. I said, he sounded just like the National Geographic narrator. She said, he was He flew in from California and he came here to say goodbye to his mother. And I went, oh my God. So that's real. So this has got to be real over here. So I had to really work and juggle that for a well, I was only there. Well, they told me that I had 6 months to live. And so I'm really gathering. I've called friends, told them that there's a possibility I won't be around. I tried to tell them, and they were going, oh, that's not going to happen. I said, and I'm really explaining to them that this is real. I mean, they told me, and I had a lot of friends who were very sad. And then they said, well, things can happen. Well, very true. So I remember about the next day, one of the nurses came in. Well, three of the nurses came in. They said, and during this time, they told me I couldn't get out of my bed. I'd have to do the bedpan. And if anything happened, to ring that, don't move. Because see, I had a bag of sand on my leg because of the heart cath, and you can bleed out if you move around. So I've been given all these instructions that I can't do anything. So the next day, these women come in, they're bringing in the oxygen, they've got a wheelchair, and they said, we're going to take you up to do the stress test, test. That's a stress test. I thought you said I'm going to die. Oh, I thought, oh, they're going to kill me. They really are going to kill me. So they were all trying to, figure it out about the oxygen tank, and they dropped it on my back, and they dropped it on me. And I thought, oh, they are killing me. They're just killing me. And but these nurses had a whole different look. I mean, they were very joyful, and they were talking. And I thought they should be really upset with me because I'm done. I just didn't make any registration of that, So I remember we were getting into an elevator to go up to get the stress test. And this other nurse came in and she turned around. Now, these other nurses are in there. And then this other nurse came in and she said, would you touch my hand? And I went, why? I said, I'm dying. And all the three nurses that knew, they just looked at the other nurse and they went, and I thought, well, they're giving all these signs in this elevator and I'm not getting it. And I thought, well, okay. And I touched her and I said, I hope that, because I'm dying, I hope you understand. And she said, that's okay. And I thought, what is that? That's just weird things to say when you're getting ready to do a stress test and they told you you're going to die. So I remember I came in and there was my cardiologist. He was in his suit, the Kohan shoes set right there. Now he's got a pen and a tablet and he's going to be writing down. And he told the nurses, put her, all on her. And let's just look at the stress test and say, well, I was scared because I thought he's going to kill me. I'm going to get on that on that stairs and they're going to watch me die right there in front of them. I guess they'll know that they'll take care of it, I guess. I remember one of the nurses goes like this. And I thought, that is do it. Just, you could feel it. Do it. Just because I started out real slow because I thought, if I'm going to have a heart attack, I better be careful here. Because I walk 4 miles a day, so I can walk. So I thought, okay. And then I thought, well, that wasn't too bad. And I wasn't getting any pain. Nothing was hurting. And I thought, okay. And then he says, turn it up. And I thought he was going to kill me because I've seen the Kohan shoes. You think such stupid stuff. But so they started, and then I really got good. And I thought, wow, this is good. And I felt wonderful. I felt back into myself. My body was back. I was back in my body. And he went, stop it. Take her off. Take her down to the hospital room. I thought, and I remember one of the nurses said, you did really good. And I thought, that's good. You really did. I mean, they were excited. So I'm thinking, they're excited that I had a heart attack and I might die. But, you don't relate the same way. So I remember coming in and my husband was in there. The manager of the hospital was in there. My family doctor was in there. Another man was in there and my cardiologist, 5 men discussing me. And I'm listening and this is what he says. The cardiologist said, that is called shocked heart. And because he's got to have to prove, why would he tell me I needed a heart transplant? And this is a woman that's sitting here that looks normal and is not responding the way. And so I remember listening to him. It kind of made me mad because they didn't ask me anything. They were just discussing me. And my husband was in there as well. So I raised up out of the bed. I remember. And I said, well, I call it a miracle. And I laid back down because I was afraid I'd have another heart attack. And they all turned around and looked at me. I said, it's a miracle. If you're calling me that I don't have any, I'm not going to die, you're telling me it's a miracle. I'm not going to believe anything else but that. And I just kept staying because I knew I had to stay really calm, because if I upset myself, I could have another heart attack. So I remember after that was done, the nurses came in and they said, you did really well. And I said, so what is really going on? They couldn't tell me. And so again, my husband comes, and then my cardiologist, he said, this is called shocked heart. Your heart has completely healed itself. You do have a stent, but you've got what everybody, when you get he said, but your heart is 100% back. And the next day I left. But I remember one of the nurses was, they have to go through the process. They have the protocol. She's getting me dressed and everything. And as she's willing me to go get in the car with my husband, she turned around and looked at me and she said, please don't come back. You have given us hope that healing can happen.
How do you explain this healing?
I had to do a lot of studying on this because I didn't understand it. It took me 5 years to really ponder. Well, it took me, when I first came back home, I didn't talk for 3 months. I mean, my husband would talk to me. All I did was cry. All I did, because it was starting to come in that I was in another state of mind. And I couldn't figure that out. So I didn't talk to anybody. All I did with my friends would come in, I would just start crying because I knew that I'd had something amazing that had happened to me, but I didn't understand why. And in the 1980s, nobody believed me. I mean, they thought, because I didn't have this is what they said, you didn't have enough oxygen to your brain. That's why you went through all these different things. And there were scientists who said, you really don't get that. It's when you're closing out. No, I know exactly where I went, because it took me, that's when I started doing meditation, because a beautiful voice came to me and said, you need to start learning to meditate. These are beings that I did not know. These are not teachers of the physical. I never had a physical teacher. I had different these entities. I don't know if they're entities. They're not aliens. They're belief systems, but they show up in an imaginary thing. I try to explain to people because I think that's who we are, all of us. I think we have a massive amount of conversation, information, and we have how you've been trained and programmed, or what your belief systems are, is what you're going to draw into you, because that's all you've got. So that's why some people have near-death experiences that are atheists, and they have an amazing experience, because I've listened to a lot of them. In fact, I've had a lot of people who've come to my house to talk to me about their NDEs. They're all different, but it still comes back down to perspective, how that perspective has resonated within them, because I was out. I've never been, but when I started looking, I'd been out a lot when I was a little girl, because I was my mother's 7th miscarriage in 1951 and survived it. I've drowned twice, one at 11, one at 16. I've had 2 strokes, 2 heart attacks, and I was paralyzed in 2019 from the neck down. And I walked out 3 days later on every one. But now in the 2 strokes, I did not go to the hospital. I did it myself. I went down. Now, I couldn't talk for 9 months, but it's because of what I learned about the electromagnetic field and how we are light, how we really can heal. But it's all up here because we've been trained that we can't. And I got to see things that most people don't. They took, Jesus came in and talked to me and took me to the Middle Ages, not the Middle Ages, middle, well, see, that's stroke. Because when I'm talking, see, you've got to learn how to do all this because it's a lot of electrical energy that's going in, and I'm talking to you, and I do feel you. So when I can get two or more, I have a different vibration that comes through. So, but it's when Jesus came to me and told me about a lot of things that were going on here and what really wasn't the truth. And the truth is what sets you free. And so I had to start studying. And I had a beautiful voice that would come in, and that was my voice. It was my soul voice. My soul came to me and trained me for over 5 years how to do this work.
Can you tell me how Jesus came?
Jesus came in through like in a plasma field. He just came in. Now, the thing about him, everybody says, well, because I was a teacher, I was at a religious school, I was a Catholic, and I had a beautiful bulletin board that said Jesus with a big smile. So when Jesus walked into my room, he looked exactly like my bulletin board, Jesus. I said, wow, he's exactly like the guy that I see every day in my classroom. And then I realized, because he stayed with me for 18 months every day and trained me and made me go into the Bible and hold the Bible in front of me, and it turned into water one day. And he said, dive in. And he knew that I was a swimmer. I was a diver. I was a person that really lived in the water. And so I dove in, and I remember he said, there's a Bible within the Bible. And he's exactly right. There is a simple Bible, and all of this other stuff is to keep you. That's the coding that Jesus was trying to teach. He was a parable, and those were the parables. They were the simple things that he was telling me. And all he kept saying to me was this: it's the lessons. Only go to the lessons, and how did they learn those lessons? And I thought, that's so simple, because you hear all the names, because I was also raised as a Baptist first. So I had biblical understanding. I also had understanding about the Catholic Church. It was like amazing because I retired at the age of 50 from teaching and stayed in this for sometimes 16 and 17, 18 hours a day. I thought, if I'm going to have Jesus here, I'm going to ask him every question that I have. And so that was one of the questions. How do people really see you? And he said, how they know me. He said, if they've been trained this way, they're going to recognize it. He said, would they ever recognize me if I came in the room and they didn't recognize me because that's the only way they knew me? And I thought, that is exactly the truth. That's exactly the truth. That's the same way when I spoke to God, and this is a voice that, and one day I was just standing in the window and I was really viewing the sunrise, how beautiful I was experiencing it. And this beautiful voice came and said, I painted that for you. And I thought, that is exactly, because a sunrise for you will be totally different than mine, but yet we can all describe it, but we're all going to have a different experience with it. So when I started seeing it's all perspective and illusional here, it's through the illusions that we have learned, but we've got to now go in. And that's when I got into learning patterns, how we've been programmed, how the world really worked. I mean, I got knocked down into some of the rabbit holes, and I'd be in there for 16 or 17 months figuring it out. But when I started figuring it out, it was like it came in easy. I would have somebody would come in to visit. Socrates came in one time. Now, I want you to understand, I taught 9 subjects every day. I taught history. So I had taught Socrates. And I remember this because I was sitting there and I kept getting real. I thought, I need to come out of this meditation, go into the kitchen and get some water because I really need to drink water. So I went into the kitchen. It's got ceramics, and I got a glass of water, but I missed, and it was falling. And there we go again. Everything got slow. I recognize, you understand those slow moments. I have this all the time, and it got slow. So everything was in slow mo, and this glass was just And I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to break. It hit the ceramic, bounced back up, went back down, rolled again, and never broke. And did not take one drop out of that glass. And then I came back real fast. And I had to stand in that kitchen thinking, now, how in the hell did that happen? And that's when I really got intrigued that we can slowly move and we can expand and contract. So my higher self started working with me about inside, when I would go into my meditation, how to contract and expand yourself. And I learned how to get out of my body and go out in. That's how I learned quantum physics the way I did. I did teach physics in the 6th grade, but I never had, I figured out quantum on the mathematics, but where I went, there was no mathematics. I experienced it. This is what Tesla does. That's what he did. I studied Tesla. I've studied them all because I got into the electromagnetic field and I'm electrical sensitive. I can't touch those phones or anything. It's because of all the energy I've done and how it affects me. Because I can feel Wi-Fi. I can't walk into a room. That's how I got started, is I can feel everything in the room and how things have to move to change the room to get it back into balance.
You mentioned that the world is an illusion. Can you elaborate on that and how you discovered it and what are your conclusions?
Well, because I figured out, because in the Bible it says the narrow road, okay? I knew that, well, I realized there's one side that's very fast and it's very much where I live, but then there's another one that is very much differently, that is very supernatural. And it is supernatural. Things slow down. I see things differently. I can see energy out of things that are residuals. I mean, if somebody's left their energy on a class, I'll see their energy on that, and you'll figure. So that's how I got involved with police officers and things like that, because I would see this. They would take me to a scene, and I could tell you pretty much where that person has gone, what he's looking at. And I mean, I wasn't trying to do this. I was trying to just figure it all out. So I got involved in, because I was an animal communicator for a long, long time. I've been like this all my life. So I already had an understanding that animals talk just like my cats looking at. So, but I never sat down and told anybody about it, but I could always see children's auras. I thought everybody saw aura. I didn't know. I was sitting at a teacher's lounge and I said, do you see when the kids get the message? And do you not see how the whole room lights up and you can see them all connected? And they're all going, no. I knew then. And well, when I would have a child, and we were a very small school, and they would say, I've got a child that can't do certain things and we can't figure it out. We're bringing her up here. And you look at her, and I said, well, she's too far off the balance of her right side. So we're going to have to bring it in. You're going to do more right side. Because I got my graduate thesis was the right brain, the left brain, and how the whole brain has to come in. The narrow road. And this all came in from my teaching first, because I used to see children shapeshift. I could see when they were in fear, but I thought everybody saw that. I'm not, but I'm not special. That's what I'm saying, is I try to explain to people, I'm not special. We're all capable of doing that, but we've been told we can't. And I was very stuck to that. I mean, I followed very much the cues and the rules of the world of man. And that's what I call it. There's the world of man, and then there's the world of God or the supernatural. And I walk through the center of it and see both sides. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. So it's been amazing for me. I have changed my life. I am 73 years old. I started doing this when I was 50. Well, really 46, but to really I ended up getting a divorce, and then I ended up, I live on Angel Avenue. I've been here all my life since I've been 8 years old. So I was connecting a lot of dots. about how I got here, the purpose I was here. It's not anything what anybody really understands. You've got to go deeper within the soul to find out what the truth is. And that's all I came in here to do is what is the truth? And all I see here anymore in the world of man is deception, lies, cheating, and we're in trouble here because we're not following our higher consciousness to open this up. We don't have to do anything hard. If you understand that you are a higher conscious being, you have every opportunity to change everything around you. You don't have to change the world, change yourself. It changes everybody else around you. So, yeah.
Did you know about near-death experiences? How did you learn about near-death experiences? And when did you start sharing your story?
Well, I didn't share my story because, well, I stopped sharing it because people will roll their eyes, and especially my family. And then, I would be accused, do you think you're Jesus? They were always blasphemy, honey. It was even my town. And I was very highly, respected here. I mean, I was a community person. Well, they all thought I was really whacked. I remember going to grocery stores and people kind of walking away from me. They didn't want to see me. So I would tell you, this has not been an easy ride, but I will not ever get off of this because I know the truth. Once you know the truth, how am I going to go back over to that world when I know it's the worst place to be? And you can change it just by this. I came in here. I know that I have also met a lot of my past lives. I know where they are. I went way out. And this, a long time ago, I would never believe this. I would have never. In fact, I read the book on Shirley MacLaine. And I remember also in the 80s, she did that movie. And I remember sitting right there and said, she has lost her mind. She's a great actress, a great dancer, but she has lost her mind. And I read her book, and one night I'm sitting at my house, laying in bed in a deep meditation and raised straight up and said, oh my God, I'm Shirley MacLaine. So I knew then, and it has changed my life. And I have worked with people all over the world. How you got to know me is most people would have never met me because I've never advertised. They find me. That's what the universal God told me. You will not ever want for money. You'll never want for people that need you. I will bring, and I have never advertised.
How do you help people?
Electromagnetically through the soul. I go deep into the soul because we have such depth inside of us. Remember, you've got a soul in there. Your vessel is just holding that soul. It's eternal. So it has got information from many lifetimes that it's trying to clear itself so it can be pure light, because that's all we are, is pure light. But if we've got all these taints and this stuff that we've added on, and what the guilt, the shame that we've been pushed down and said we are just like animals, which that's to keep us in the same frequency, because that we run this frequency, but it doesn't matter if we're in fear. Is the best thing they love, because as a little girl, I saw demons when I was a little girl in my bedroom all the time because the red eyes would come in. Now, you go ask somebody about the red eyes and they'll find me but I had to learn. I was terrified as a little girl. Darkness was scary. I saw things come out of the TV. I saw shadows all the time. I would have voices that would wake me up in the night and go, Jenny. And I knew then, as long as they could keep me in that fear level, they could utilize this, and that's called loosh. And so when you understand that, but you've got to understand, I had to learn it, and I never could do anything unless I was given the direction to follow. And I could just go into a bookstore and a book would kind of be lit up, put my hands on it. It would tell me exactly what I need to know. I've got hundreds of books, and I can sit down and I would go in. If I've got a client coming in, I might be looking at my book and that book will come up, and then I'll know exactly what to say. because we're not tapping into that reality. We're not tapping into the real reality is we are great beings of light. Why are we playing in this game of politics and anger and separation? Because they got to keep us there. Because this is my truth. If we ever wake up to who we really are, they're scared. And I know they're scared because I've already been warned. I've been warned not to talk about this. I know about the Freemasons, the Illuminati, because I've had them try to come in here. I mean, I'm strong in who I am, and I'm not going to change even because I'm not in fear anymore. I'm not afraid to die. That's the big thing. I'm not afraid to die. When you don't have any fear about dying, I'll walk out of, I've done some amazing things through the supernatural. And I will not change that. I did my inner healing. I had to go in. That's why I had to do 16, 17 hours a day.
In the hospital, they told you that you had healed your heart.
Well, the nurses did and the doctor did, but I healed maybe to their flesh, but I had to heal the soul to really heal. It's deeper healing. Because why I say that is because I've laid down and had to go into my heart and I asked it. I said, why? Why did I have this heart attack? And I was mad at it. And they went, and I could feel it go, huh. And I said, what? What is it? Why did you do that? And he said, I didn't want to hurt you. So it stuffed all of my hate, my anger, as deep as it could. That's why I had a heart attack. It wasn't because it out here, it was my soul was hurt. And so when I see people getting healed a lot, but then they're back into being sick again. That's because they got the opportunity to heal outwardly, but they need to heal it inwardly to heal it. That's why when I drowned, when I was 11 years old, I drowned in a lifeguard class. Well, I saw the pearly gates. As a little girl, I was 11 years old. And I remember they pulled me out. They didn't even, because we were taking, I was supposed to be a victim trying to grab everybody. Well, they think I'm playing. And then they realized she's drowning. So they got me up. And I remember when I came up, I went, I saw the pearly gates. I saw the pearly gates. Now, I have a friend in there, and she and I talked. She is now with me 67 years. And we were talking about, she said, Jenny, we didn't even think anything about that. She said, you raised straight up and said, I saw the pearly gates. Nobody said anything, walked away. See, that's what I'm saying. I've had these profound experiences, but I just discarded it because I thought, man, I was crazy. No, it happened when I was 16, I skipped school with my cousin and they threw a wool blanket on me on the river, Kentucky River. And I knew then, I was a lifeguard. I was a very good swimmer. When that wool went over my head, it absorbed all the water and took me straight down to the bottom of that river. And it was also April, so it was cold. And I remember going down with that blanket. Now, I could not see, remember? So as I'm going down, I'm thinking, well, my mother is going to be so mad at my cousin because I'm the only child. I'm going to die. He took me, this is the kind of stuff. Well, in that process, as I'm going down, all these Twinkie lights, I don't know how to explain it, came up underneath that blanket, opened that blanket up, and I could see light and took that blanket off of me and released it. And I could look up into the surface and it said, we're going to push you up. And they took all those little Twinkie lights, took me all the way up, and I flew up into the surface. Now, I don't know if the way my cousin looked, he said, where have you been? I couldn't have been maybe seconds, minutes, because I certainly went in there for a minute. That's what I'm telling you. When you're in the supernatural, there is no time. And people don't get it. That's why people, when they're in a car accident, you get slow and then you come back in. So they're all going out of their bodies. I do this all the time. I said, have you ever done daydreaming? And because they all want to come over here and we teach them. I said, you're already doing it. I said, when you daydream, I said, you're no longer in your body. I said, you are somewhere else. And your body sitting right here. That's what happened with the Jeff Parr experience. I was out dancing with God, and came back in. And I mean, I can go out through that window because I can go into particles. We've got to be waking up to this. I go in, I'm out up in the universe talking to God, discussing whether I should retire or maybe, do you have something else for me to do? So I fly back down into my body because I'm very good. I know how to slide in. You cannot beat yourself in. You slide in because it's all electromagnetically. I slid in, and within 10 minutes, Jeff Marr said, "Can I interview you for your near-death experience?" Well, I've been doing this since 2009. I've been talking on radio, TV. I've talked about this over and over and over. And now somebody gets it, and that's gone to 1 million views because people are ready to hear it.
How can people contact you if they're interested in communicating
You
with you?
have my website. They have to go through my website because it got so, I was seeing 16 and 17, 18 hours, 18 emails for a year. I mean, you can't imagine. I got over inundated. So they have to go to the website, Divine Inheritance. I think that's it, but it'll be on there. I've been doing this podcasting for almost 50 different podcasts all over the world. And this is what I want you to know. I was never wanting to be this. I didn't want to be known like this. But when I got there, Spirit literally said, "I've got you out there now for a reason. Now tell them the whole truth." And that's what I'm telling, is the whole truth.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.